Welcome to Saturday versus Sunday. I'm John Barber, and let's cover the Auburn Baylor game that just finished. This was a pretty good game too. We could say that Auburn was mostly in control of this game, but Baylor just kept sticking around and sticking around, and they I don't know, I guess they obviously resorted to the passing attack to stay in it because they sure as hell couldn't run the ball. Whereas conversely, Auburn put up 300 yards rushing, and Jackson Arnold looked like looks like he might have a home here. So let's see here. Let's start with Auburn. So Arnold looks good. They almost are using him a little bit like Tebow when he was on the Gators. He's kind of a one read and go sort of player here, and I think that might be partly because the run game was so strong that he didn't need to be that much more dynamic in the passing game. He looked pretty poised in the pocket. He seemed to know what he was supposed to do with the ball, and he didn't really seem to put the ball in harm's way. He didn't seem to ever really be having happy feet back there or ever not know what to do. And it was always smooth. Even when he was scrambling, it was really decisive. I guess that's what I would say about him in this game. Everything seemed decisive and confident when he was doing things. Even when it was a scramble, it was an obvious, like, no, nope, go. And maybe he's a better runner than I remember him, or it just didn't look that good when he was playing before, and then obviously got benched. But he looked like he was totally in control of this offense that's apparently called by multiple coaches here. So this whole thing, and I know Lane Kiffin ripped on them here. So Auburn was getting 7.5 yards per play on first down, which is called by the offensive coordinator, Derek Nix. And then a different coach, Kent Austin, actually is in charge of the third down calls and the third down strategy. And then I guess Freeze is sort of in charge of the second down. And apparently he can override either of them, but he doesn't really want to. So partway through the game, I kind of thought, well, they really look in control here. And this is the best Arnold's ever looked. So maybe this 3 coaches, 1 coach per down strategies, maybe it's a good idea. It sounds overly complicated, but I don't know. Maybe this is a huge innovation, like a Mike Leach caliber innovation, and other teams might start taking notice here. But if you're an Auburn fan, you got to be pretty happy here. It looks like they know what to do with Arnold, and Arnold looks like he's fully capable of doing whatever it is they're asking him to do. And 300 yards rushing, you'll take that every day of the week. I mean, that's what Georgia Tech just did to Colorado. I just covered that if you want to check out that video. But yeah, you're usually going to win a game if you put up 300 yards on the ground. It almost doesn't matter what you do through the air. And you could say that point is somewhat evidenced by the fact that Baylor had 419 passing yards. Like Sawyer Robertson just went bananas, but that was not enough. It was too little, too late. And they only had 64 yards rushing. So I think you're always going to take head to head. Auburn had 100 yards passing. Baylor had 400 yards passing. Auburn had 307 rushing. Baylor had 64 rushing. So Baylor actually outgained them. But 10 times out of 10, you take the Auburn stat line. If you can put 300 yards rushing up against the team and hold them to 64, I'd say 9 times out of 10, you're winning that game. It'd have to be a really strange game to lose that, no matter how many passing yards the other team puts up. It's just, that's not the recipe for winning. It's the heavy run game is the recipe for winning. They also won the time of possession battle. Not hugely, but 33 to 26. That Auburn being the team that won. Now, this was a clean game, no turnovers, whereas in the Colorado game, but Georgia Tech turned the ball over 3 times in 10 minutes, which was crazy. Auburn 52 rushing attempts. I mean, this looks like this could be a gritty power run team, and they over time just looked kind of bigger and stronger than Baylor. I know I don't want to say men against boys or anything like that, but you could tell the Auburn team could lean on the Baylor team and just grind them. And even it's just every run seemed to go forward. It was rare for Baylor to get him in the backfield, like get him for a tackle for a loss, or even when they hit the running back like really hard, he seemed to always still fall forward. So it was just positive yards sort of all the time for Auburn. Even if it was not very many yards, it kind of everything always seemed to be moving forward for Auburn. So that that's huge if Auburn can actually play like this throughout the season. I don't know if this is an indictment of the Baylor defense. I mean, one of those touchdowns was a 98-yard kick return, which totally gutted the momentum that Baylor had stolen back and was trying to claw back into this game. I actually think that killed them. That score right there was I mean, I think they scored again after that, but it didn't matter. That just that's just too much to overcome. I mean, if you've got a team that's out rushing you by 250 yards and just leaning on you, the last thing you can do is also give them a special team score. I mean, it's just too much. It's just too many. It's just too much to overcome. I mean, a 300-yard rushing attack is next to impossible to overcome. But if you add in a 98-yard kick return score, there's almost no way you're ever going to win that game. And I mean, that kind of turned into part of why this was a 2-touchdown game. And anytime Baylor got within a touchdown, Auburn kept extending the lead. But beyond that, if this is indicative of how Auburn is going to use Jackson Arnold, as long as he stays healthy, this looks a lot like the Georgia Tech game against Colorado. It looks a lot like a power run game with the QB. Now, in this case, Arnold seems to scramble. Even when they call QB draws with him, he doesn't. It's not like a battering ram situation where Haynes King is getting hit really hard on basically every single play. In this game, Jackson Arnold, even when he scrambled for significant yards and even when he scrambled up the middle, or even if it was a called QB run, not necessarily a scramble, he pretty effectively slid and to protect himself, get down, get the yards and protect himself. And he's going to have to do that to survive the season, I would think. I have no idea how Haynes King's doing it, but somehow he's just ultra durable. But this is an effective way to use. He ran for 137 yards, 2 TDs, threw for another 108, and no interceptions. So it was a clean game. He was super effective with his legs, and that was just killing Baylor. When Baylor managed to shut down any passing options, they had no answer for Arnold scrambling, and it was quite easy for him, and he was never really putting his body in harm's way, that's a good sign for Auburn fans. If this can translate into games against once they get into their SEC schedule, this team's going to be a problem. Like, there's no another way around it. It's going to be a problem. And they have talent on the outside, like Coleman and Simmons and Singleton. They have receiving threats, but they didn't need to use them. And most coaches, if you don't have to throw the ball, forget it. Don't throw the ball, because it's just a riskier way to play. And as we've seen here, 400 yards passing was still not enough to get back into this game. So, I mean, like I said, your coaches, anyone who really understands football, you're always taking the team that outrushes the other team, no matter how many passing yards they put up. Now, with that said, Sawyer Robertson's the man in the pocket. This guy can read a defense. He can get through his progressions. He can throw with anticipation. He can put it where it needs to be to get the ball down the field, throw players open. There's some times where he threw back shoulder stuff and things where he forced his receiver to adjust, but he kind of knew he had the defenders back to him, and it wasn't a risky pass. I specifically was thinking one in the second half where he was getting hit. He just threw it up, and it looked like he threw it up for grabs, but the defender was man coverage. The defender has back to him. He would have never been able to turn around and see that one, and it was a completion. So I think he's legit. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and it showed tonight. One of the issues, I think, with the Baylor coaching staff, not that I'm saying I'm a better coach or know how to coach a team, but one thing it seemed kind of clear is they had 0 rushing attack. They had 64 yards rushing in the whole game. And I think they abandoned the run too late in the game, because when they finally did just start opening it up and throwing it in the second half, and specifically after the kick return, they seemed to be completing slants and passes over the mid. They just completing passes at will. And they had two, Cole Wilson and Michael Trigg were essentially unguardable. So 134 yards for Wilson, 99 yards for Trigg. And then he mixed it up, and Hawkins, Cameron, everyone got caught passes on this team here. So he can distribute. He can get it to whoever as long as they give him just enough time. He can get it to the open receiver. So I think they just abandoned the run a little too late, and maybe just didn't want to admit, like, we just got to pass our way. Like I was just saying, coaches don't want to pass the ball if they don't have to. They don't want to just be a passing team. That's not technically a winning strategy. But when you're down to a team like Auburn and the way they were grinding them down, and you give up the kick return, and it's that late in the game, you have no other option. 64 yards rushing. At what point do you realize the next rush isn't going to be the one that breaks it? Like, I know they had a 50-yarder taken back, but you could say, oh, well, they had 50 yards, but it was a holding call. But that's right. It's a holding call. So then that's not a run. That all that is negative 10 yards. And that's another thing. The Auburn defensive line was giving the Baylor offensive line all kinds of problems. And when Sawyer Robinson broke contain, like got out of the pocket to buy himself more time, which he's totally capable of doing, they seem to get a holding call almost every single time. So they either expect him to climb the pocket, or they just can't block that Auburn defensive line that long because they're just too good. And as soon as he got out of the pocket, his linemen are now technically out of position. And when the Auburn linemen break away to go after Robertson, almost every single time it was a holding penalty, or it seemed at the most critical points, it seemed to always be a holding penalty when he started to scramble. And that was kind of a major difference. That was not happening with the Auburn offensive line against the Baylor defensive line. So overall, I think Auburn's, both their offensive and defensive lines had the edge on Baylor's offensive and defensive line. It's kind of clear when you can outrun the team like this and cause that much trouble and stop the run on the other team. And then even with the amount of yards Robertson passed for, there was still a lot of penalties when he was escaping the pocket and trying to extend the play. So it could just be, to a man, Auburn just has better. They're just better in the trenches, and if you're better in the trenches, you're usually going to win the game unless you make some critical errors, which they did not. And when you add in a kick return touchdown, there's no way you're not beating a team that can run for 300 yards and get a kick return touchdown. So what do we think of both of these teams after this one? Maybe there is something to the third year with Freeze here, and maybe his strategy with the three different coaches or two extra coaches calling first down, third down, and maybe, I guess, Freeze gets second down, I guess. Maybe this is the thing. Maybe they've figured out how to use Jackson Arnold, and he's going to have a resurgent career here. It would be nice to have Auburn as a player in the SEC. They seem to show up and then just disappear for a few years and then show up again. So maybe this is a show up year for Auburn where they're right in the mix for the whole season. It'd be nice. It would be nice for Auburn to be a player this year in the SEC. And on the other side, Baylor kind of got in their own way a little bit in this game, but really they just seemed to be overwhelmed at the line of scrimmage, and it wasn't every time they got back in it. Auburn immediately stole the momentum back. So it could be that they were just overmatched, at least in the trenches, and they couldn't run the ball, and they didn't do obviously enough in the passing game, and didn't, I think, revert to the passing game soon enough to try to just fight power against power. So Auburn's, or strength against strength, however you want to say it. Auburn's strength was running, and Baylor's strength is passing, but they didn't really put their focus on what they're best at until too late in the game. And even then, it was still 400 yards, but it was too little, too late to make up for this abusive running attack from the Tigers. So, but the future for the Baylor Bears is still all ahead of them. This does not prevent them from. Obviously, it's not a conference game, so it doesn't prevent them from having a shot at the Big 12 championship game, which is their way into the playoffs. It's not likely. If last year is anything like this year, it's not likely the Big 12's getting an at-large bid unless there's someone who doesn't make the championship game or gets to the championship game, and then that's their only loss. Kind of like how SMU went in at whatever it was, 11-1. So maybe that's, if that happens in the Big 12, maybe they do get two people in. But as far as a playoff shot, this has not Their future is still ahead of the Baylor Bears, and there's going to be a lot to learn from this game. I don't know that they're going to face a team quite like Auburn in their conference schedule, so it's all there for the taking still for Baylor. And then for Auburn, this is a good win. This was going to be a challenge. Robertson's a legit QB. They're not going to like the fact that they, meaning the Auburn coaches, are not going to like the fact that they gave up 400 yards in the air. They're going to love the fact they held them to 64 yards, but there's still work to do on that pass defense. But it's all still ahead of Auburn too. Obviously, they won this game out of conference, and now if they have a great season, but they don't make the SEC championship game, but they have a 9-3 record, or maybe 10-2, but maybe 9-3, and Baylor goes on to be really competitive in the Big 12, if not in the Big 12 championship game, this could be one of Auburn's signature wins in the eyes of the playoff committee. I know I'm projecting all the way to the end of the season, but this could be a great win for Auburn if this year's Auburn is something like last year's Alabama or last year's South Carolina, who had a 9-3 record and was in the conversation for, does a 9-3 team from the SEC deserve to be in given the strength of their schedule? So this could be a signature win. If Baylor goes on to win 10 games this year and is in the Big 12 championship game, this will absolutely be a signature win for Auburn. So it sucks for Baylor that they lost, but their entire future is still ahead of them. They can still make the playoffs because they can still make the Big 12 championship game. They obviously have some work to do here. And Auburn, good for them, could be a signature win. And Jackson Arnold looks really good in this offense. He looked poised. He didn't put the ball at risk. Auburn fans got to be happy with what they just saw there. So anyways, let me know what you think in the comments. I kind of just threw out my thoughts. I just finished watching the game. I have a bunch of notes here, but it's just too much stuff. I just wanted to get out the feeling I had as the game ended and what I thought of both teams. Like, obviously Auburn gets the shirt because they won. Baylor's on the wall. But let me know what you thought of this game. If you're an Auburn fan, a Baylor fan, or just a college football fan, what did you think was the keys to this game, turning points, something that really stuck out in your head? Did I miss something, or did I hit the points you think were the relevant points for this game? I appreciate you being here. This is a small channel. I know I'm just starting out. It's only my second year, but if you're here this long, I totally appreciate you still being here and checking the channel out. Please, if you like what I'm doing, like it and maybe share it with somebody, and obviously leave a comment. It's always good to hear from you. All right, well, we'll catch you later.